Welcome to Conversations with Kay. I'm Kay Ryder, and every week I talk with Vermonters who are leaders in the fields of government, healthcare, education, the arts, and community life. My guest is Bill Metcalfe, who's the founder and the conductor of the Oriana Singers in Burlington, Vermont. Welcome back, Bill.
Thank you. You too.
How long have you conducted the Oriana Singers?
Oh, that's a terribly difficult question because nobody agrees about it. When we first started the choir, we were in the habit of doing the program and listing everything but the year. Well, consequently, you get 15, 20 years in, you look at this number, it means nothing. And I would say since about 1981, something like that.
Well, that's a good track record, that's for sure.
That's long enough, yes.
Now, the singers are going to have a concert in May, and where and when will the concert be held?
Well, it will be on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock at St. Paul's Cathedral, and it's on the 21st of October. Whoops, not yet October.
Not yet.
21st of May.
There we go.
Yes.
There we go. Where can people buy tickets for the concert?
Well,
and do you have a website? They're
on sale. Yes, we do have a website, orianavermont.com. And you can get tickets from the Lane Series ticket operation. And that's pretty much all we need. You know, sells some at the door.
Okay.
And it's always worth going if you would like to go at the last minute, especially on a Sunday afternoon.
Right. The Sunday afternoons seem to be a time when people are sometimes looking for things to do. And I think actually that your website is .org rather than .com because you're a nonprofit,
you
right?
would know better than I. It's there, but you know.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is .org.
I think so.
Yeah.
I always try several things before I get the right one myself. So.
Well, it's good that you're having this concert, and I'm sure it'd be a summer / spring treat for people if it ever gets warm, Bill.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the concert itself. You have said that the theme of this Oriana concert is, quote, Bach and Handel in a merry mood, end of quote. Now, what do you mean by merry mood? I mean, I think of Handel as being very merry, the water music and all that. But Bach, I'm not quite so sure about.
That's put that particular way. That's a very complex question, and the reason it is that both composers were good at the other side of the equation. I mean, Bach is so complex, and when he begins to move quickly through music, it can be very merry indeed, like parts of the Goldberg variations that are almost funny. They're quick and rhythmic and marvelous. Handel can write these giant choruses for oratorios about people being, making war with other people in the Middle East, is what we would say today. And then every now and then he becomes the water music or the Royal Fireworks music, and all the tunes come out again.
Yeah. Now you are performing Handel's Dixit Dominus, which is described as one of Handel's earliest pieces. And it was written in Italy when he was very young.
He was quite young.
And,
he left Saxony and he went down to Italy to see what he could learn.
Do composers tend to write merrier music when they're in Italy?
Well, they should. I mean, they're surrounded with Tuscan vineyards and wonderful food. There's a certain way, if you think of Mendelssohn's Italian Symphony, there's a certain lightness afoot there, which I think is often present. And there's a lot of lightness in good opera writing, but of course the big tragic opera is also Italian. So.
Yeah. But I love Italy.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, the sunlight there is different.
Yeah.
The whole place, it's just a marvelous country, and they have had no government since the time of the Romans, but they're doing well.
There's a sad column in the New York Times today, I'm afraid, about things not going all that well in Rome, and nobody's willing to spruce things up and make it look like Imperial Rome anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful city. Now, Dixit Dominus, the Lord said, is written in the Baroque style for soloists, chorus, strings, and continuo. What is the Baroque style? Would you please tell our audience?
Well, I'll ask you a question. What do you think about Vivaldi and elevators? For a long time, that was the big musical joke, that wherever you went, if you walked into an elevator, and Liz and I did this in northern France, all we tourists were getting into the elevator, and the first thing when the doors came shut, they started to play Vivaldi, and you can imagine what it was, the Seasons.
The Seasons, sure.
And so I guess I'd say Baroque style for Handel is being somewhat jaunty and being full of notes. It wasn't just about Mozart. They said that there were too many notes, Wolfgang. There. Vivaldi has thousands of notes, and his string bowing techniques they give themselves to that kind of structure. And this Vivaldi it's full of sparkling. It's full of wonderful fiddle playing, and very Baroque-ish in that it's. I mean, one could give this lecture for probably 4 or 5 classes at the university. There are other ways of telling about Baroque, but it really has to do with a good deal of ornamentation, and within that a good melodic drive as well. It's hard to bring off, but when you do, it's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the Baroque always has a continuo?
Pretty much always. I can't imagine it's not having one. I'm sure there are pieces somewhere that don't. Yes, a continuo that plays continuously. They always want to be paid twice as much because they play all through the piece. And that consists usually of either of a cello or a viola da gamba playing the bass line, and then a harpsichord or an organ filling in the harmonies and decorating the top of it.
Yeah, sort of like singing bel canto, very, very ornamented and.
Well, the answer is, of course, yes and no. You wouldn't, I think, take a bel canto aria from a Gounod opera or a Meyerbeer opera and confuse that with a work by Handel. But there are elements always, and the way the voice just flows out in a wonderful stream of sound is part of Baroque writing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Why did Handel decide to write such a tuneful piece?
Well, he was being paid by the Cardinal Ottoboni, and as you know, this piece was wanted to be played at the Cardinal's house during Lent. One was not supposed to have secular pieces out in the churches at that time. The Cardinal wanted a party, I assume. And it's interesting to me that it's possible, in fact probable, that the great violinist of his age, Corelli, played in this orchestra for Handel, Handel being the effective conductor at the keyboard, and Corelli playing away like mad. It's, you know, musicians do that. They play with friends, they play with other great musicians. And I think that comes out in the way Handel writes too. He's a very joyous composer on the whole. You know.
Yeah, you know, musicians still do that today. Yo-Yo Ma is always looking for people to play with.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
And does it very successfully.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The Silk Road music.
Yeah.
And he's even played some bluegrass type stuff.
I think some of us call it the Silk Road Empire at this point. It's simply amazing what he's done with a very small beginning with a few friends, and then it is sort of mini industry at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he has really done a lot for music and for himself, because he has found pieces to play, and he's been happier with a variety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Bach's cantata number 214 was written to celebrate the birthday of Maria Josepha, Princess Elector of Saxony and Queen of Poland. It is Bach at his best, full orchestra, singers. This is a God Save the Queen number, in a way,
Yeah.
if you look at the words. A joyful piece for a happy day. Bach is famous for his church music, and he certainly had to produce a lot of it. But did he often write for royal occasions?
He did, yeah. And I think with all these church pieces, they all end with Hallelujah. And so you'll often find that Bach starts, as he does with this cantata, he starts with a very joyous, very glitzy kind of chorale at the beginning, a choral introduction. Then you have a series of recitatives and arias, each more beautiful than the previous one. And then at the very end, you come down and you say, Amen, Amen, Hallelujah, and away come the trumpets, and we will have 3 royal trumpets for this concert. So,
as you know, I love trumpets.
I did know that, yes.
I will always attend a concert with trumpets and singers.
Good idea.
Oh yes, yes, it's always fun. It's interesting. Now she was an elector of some place in Germany, Saxony being in Germany, and a queen of Poland. I mean, they really got around to, so to speak, conquering places and getting to be kings and queens, didn't they?
Oh yeah. Well, being an elector of the Holy Roman Empire meant that you had a vote when they were choosing the next big boss as far as the empire structure was concerned. So she was a very important person indeed, and must have loved music, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Why are the church and nobility so important when we think about the history of music?
Well, I said earlier today it's because they have the big bucks, and indeed, one thing you can't do with musicians is run a concert program where the musicians don't make any money out of it. So the people who are the patrons of music in a big way, much more than is the case today, tend to be the church, who have the building, and the church also has the texts, these various things like the Psalms, and you can set all those Psalms to music as Handel does in this one. So I think the nobility, well, it's, I suppose, why you might buy a slightly bigger car and jazzier car, and so let's have musicians, let's have dance, let's have frolic, let's have whatever. And these guys have to work for almost nothing. And I would say, you could say almost the same thing about musicians now. The ones who make Yo-Yo Ma's kind of money are very, very few.
Right. I'm interested that where we went to college, the Eastman School of Music, has a course now to help students market themselves.
Yes, that's true all over the map in the United States, and I think it's true in parts of Europe too. And because there's no point graduating with a nice music degree and finding that there's no place to use it, or if you can use it, it's such a minimal amount that you can't live on it. And so you can do something else. You can produce records. You can be the editor for records. You can do all kinds of subsidiary work. And I don't begrudge Yo-Yo his bucks, but it would be nice if one saw a more equitable sharing of the musical wealth anyway.
Right. Now, just for fun, considering all that Bach wrote for the church, for the Lutheran Church, what do you think he was paid in today's dollars?
Oh, Bach? I'd have to say I haven't the faintest idea. If I had been working on any of the stuff in that period, in Bach's period, I might have stumbled on it, but it's something that tends to be dropped into the middle of a manuscript that is immense.
Yeah.
And in there are 2 sentences, as Bach collected his $2 for the evening and went home, something like that, you know. But it's so tricky and difficult to assign modern values to these ancient forms of currency.
Yeah, right, right. You have described the concert also as, it's merry, but added that Bach and Handel both borrowed, stole, themes from their contemporaries and from themselves. So we may think, particularly when we're listening to the cantata number 214, well, now I've heard that before. And you sit there and you say, yes, yes, I know I have. How does this borrowing add to the depth and beauty of music?
Well, one thing you have to remember is you can't just go over to the sideboard and pick out a CD and put it on and hear it. So you have to hear music live in those days, and this means that you'll go in search of things. People are not much offended by plagiarism in the music world. I mean, plagiarism is what you'd be called at the University of Vermont if you wrote papers that way. Borrowing from yourself is a little more tolerated. But Handel did that. There's a lot of composer by the name of Graun, and he is in many of Bach's works, sometimes just a measure or 3 or 4, in which case you wonder whether you're just making it up. And sometimes quite a bit longer, and there certainly is a surprise in this concert that people will wake up to, and if they're not already awake, we hope.
Yeah, well, in Puccini's time, he actually sued. There was a tune called Avalon, and he sued because he said it was so much like something he had written.
That's a very modern point of view. I mean, that's nobody in Beethoven, Mozart, Handel, Haydn, Bach, Telemann, none of those guys would bat an eyelash. They might if they were confronted in front of important people, and they might object, but that everybody does it, and Handel just does it better. So he gets credit for it.
Were they flattered if someone did that?
I'm sorry?
Were they flattered if someone did that?
Boy, they should have been. I mean, considering what Handel made of some of these strains and themes that he borrowed for his own use, some of them are just exquisite.
Yeah, well, I love Handel's music.
Yes.
I really do. I love the oratorios. I just love the water music, and the fireworks. It's so used today.
The great things about Handel, I mean, he's so incredibly good as an opera writer. He's incredibly good as an oratorio writer. Incidental musical things he's really good at. You can recognize him almost immediately, which is also true of Bach, by the way. Bach is perhaps somewhat greater, although it makes little sense to make those kinds of comparisons. They're two really great composers. And, well, I think this will be a fun concert. The German composer once accused Handel of writing only bow-wow music, by which he meant, the king will, the king, hail, that sort of boom, boom. Well, this time we're doing a lot of bow-wow music, and it's so much fun. It's wonderful.
That's good, that's good. Your son, Scott Metcalfe, will lead the orchestra.
He will. This is son and father being a little silly, I think, but I decided I like the English terminology. For the concertmaster, we would call him the leader of the orchestra. The Brits still call the leader. They don't talk about concertmaster of the London Philharmonic. They talk about the leader. And we do it the same way. He really does lead the orchestra in interesting ways. That's a sort of a skill you have to develop. And I concentrate primarily on the choral things, although I guess being much older than my son, I guess I get first dibs at much of this anyway.
If there's a difference of opinion, who has the most votes, you or him?
Depends who's right. we get along pretty well.
That's good.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
good. Now, he has had a successful career in Boston, hasn't he?
Yes, he was first in a choir not unlike Oriana called Convivium for 10 years. Then he was part of the founding of Blue Heron Choir, which has made, I don't know, 8 or 9 CDs, and explores a really interesting part of the repertoire that wasn't able to be performed because they had lost a tenor part in the Peterhouse part books. So this English musicologist spent most of his academic life recreating a tenor part that would be appropriate and fit. He did a sensational job. So the last of the records of that lot are coming out, and then they're going over to England to, they'll actually sing part of a service in Peterhouse where this library is, where the manuscripts are. So I think they're doing very well.
That's good. That's wonderful. Now, did you and Liz encourage Scott to become a professional musician?
No, it is certainly true that if you want to find a lot of musical folks, you will go and talk with their adult musical parents. That it's like physicians, I think. There's a strong trend to go along with it, and we did not discourage it, but we didn't go around and say, please.
Yeah. Right, doctors' children, I think, many times someone wants to become a doctor if the parent has managed to spend enough time at home.
Oh, yeah.
If the parent hasn't, then the children say, I don't want to be a doctor.
That's, yeah.
And, I think that it's
I think there's a similar thing, that whatever you feel about it, your reaction is likely to be quite strong, and you can't shake it. So he majored in biology at university and became a musician immediately thereafter. So,
well, science and music, mathematics, all this goes together, sort of.
Yeah, I have many friends who are scientists, doctors, and musicians, and some of them quite good musicians.
Yeah, well, that's always of interest, that the math and the music, but it makes sense. Yeah. Definitely. How many singers are in the Oriana Singers now?
Well, it depends who shows up, somewhere around 32, last count. It's right for the kind of thing we do. You have the very large Burlington Choral Society and very small Counterpoint on the two ends of the spectrum, and we're sort of in the middle in terms of size.
Uh-huh. This means that you sing a certain type of music.
Yeah, I'm not very comfortable with that idea, but it is true. I mean, and I've often said this to people, that we occupy this niche in the middle and sing, for instance, not only the coronations of Handel, but we've sung coronation anthems written by Purcell as well. Mm-hmm. And the same sort of thing, string accompaniment and a choir of maybe 25 or so. And, Scott with Blue Heaven has the luxury of being able to hire, let's say 5 or 6 singers for a whole program, or rather more if he needs them. Oriana stays within a smaller niche.
Do you have a hard time finding tenors? I know tenors are always very hard to find.
Well, you didn't hear me say this, but our tenor section right now is quite remarkable, and this can change, of course, at the drop of a hat, but we're very happy with our tenors right now. The odd voice out, frankly, is the altos. Real altos. We get a lot of second sopranos who are forced by their instructor to sing lower. Uh-huh. And it's also weird to me that there aren't more low basses around Burlington. That shouldn't be a problem in trying to recruit, but it is around here. Interesting.
Now I sing alto in my church choirs in Florida and here.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean. The low notes are there. They're rich and they're full. And you don't have to, think about going down for it.
Yeah, that's right.
In fact, the only problem you have is going up.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Yes, you find Haydn blissfully writes a note that's somewhere around E flat, and you wonder how you're going to get there.
Right, absolutely. Some of the people in the Oriana Singers have been with you for many years, haven't they?
Yeah, there are a very few who were with us when we were 9 singers and Liz and me. That's our first show that we put on was in the Marble Court of the Fleming Museum. And we had the late Kenneth Rothwell, Professor Rothwell, and the late Gil Rood, who they each read various documents from the Tudor time, Elizabeth and James. And it was a fun show.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of the Baroque Ensemble, which kind of led into this.
I was there that day.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I was there that day. I always loved to hear Kenneth Rockwell expound, as
Yes.
only he could. Absolutely.
It was fun to listen to Ken. He would say something quite outrageous and then sort of look at you as, did you get that one?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
We had a lot of fun.
He loved an audience, and he was
Yeah.
perfect that day. I was
Yeah.
really happy at that concert. Now the Oriana Singers have been part of your life for many years now. Why do you love making music with them? What's special? I'm just thinking about the years and
Yeah.
what's been special.
Well, it's a combination of things. First, I love to make music, and that was obvious when I started into high school. Secondly, I love to hear live people make music together. There's something, and all those words all kind of are the same thing. These people become friends. They become not just singers in the choir. You get those, but they tend to leave before too long. But to hear a live choir, a good choir, go suddenly into a great English anthem is really something. So that's sort of why I do it, I guess.
Yeah, and it has been fun.
It has been fun. I'm not sure Liz thinks always it's that much fun when she catches me worrying about this and that. But yes, it is fun, and it has to be fun. If it's going to work, it's got to be joyous. Otherwise, you might as well do something quite different, I think.
Right, right. And you have essentially done this out of the goodness of your heart, if you will.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right, right.
But that's for me too, you know. That's the important thing. That if I don't like a piece, if I really don't like a piece, I won't program it,
Yeah.
even though it's good.
On that note, I will end things here. And thank you for talking with me.
Thank you.
I look forward to the concert on the 21st of May at 4 o'clock at St. Paul's Cathedral. And, you know, I've enjoyed the Oriana Singers over the years. So good luck and have fun.
Yeah, we
and,
shall.
you know, bow, wow, wow. Go for it, Bill.
There you are.
And thank you for coming.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for joining us on Conversations with Kay.